Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another webinar from Fanbytes by Brain Labs. Today, we are going to be speaking about how to grow your brand's TikTok account. So as we get started, I'm going to pull up a little presentation. We're not going to have too much on the screen all the time because that's going to be boring, and we've got so many great people that we can chat to here. So let's kick straight off by introducing the panel. So everyone, I'd love if you could share with our wonderful crowd who you are and a little bit about what you do here.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Sophie, and I am the Fashion and Beauty Director at Fanbytes. So I work with building strategies, really multi-market, multi-campaign for brands such as Guess, Primark, Vestiaire Collective, Ganni. So yeah, that is who I am and what I do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bean. I'm the creative strategist on the creative team at Fanbytes. So my role is ultimately to ensure everything we suggest to brands, both creatively and strategically, is relevant and impactful. I kind of constantly analyze hashtags, trends, rising sounds, rising platforms like Be Real, and I work alongside the sales team to help build out decks and work on the creative strategy. Currently, I'm working on stuff for Printer Picks, Flow Health, and Selfridges.
Hey guys, my name's Sophie. I am a campaign manager in the music and entertainment pod, and I do end-to-end campaign and influencer process for our music and entertainment clients such as Creamfield, Sony Music, Paramount, and lots more.
Well, thank you very much to our panelists and all of you guests that have joined us today. As mentioned, today's all going to be about growing your TikTok account. I don't think we need to go into what TikTok is and why it's important like we did when we were doing these sort of webinars, 3 years ago. I'm assuming the fact that you've signed up for how to grow your brand's TikTok account webinar means you already know that. As we go throughout the panel, feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions down below. Also, there's going to be a couple of polls going up, so please do stay engaged, stay interactive, and we can keep it as a conversation between all of us. So diving straight into it, I know that marketers love a diagram and a chart, so we've put this together. This is basically everything that we think about when it comes to growing a TikTok account. So starting with strategy and insight, looking at actually, how can you pull together great data that's going to make your account be a success? Then going all the way around, we get how can you turn that insight into cool content? Once you've got the content there, how do you help new people discover it? Getting new people landing on your account, building that community. As you start to build the community management, obviously important, keeping the people engaged, keeping them going. And then finally, what can you report on? How can you look at some of the metrics? And then how does that tie into the strategy and insight that you keep going forwards in this nice circular motion? So we're going to spend probably about 5 minutes on each section, just kind of talking through some of the different things that you should be thinking about. We've got some actionable tips. We're going to pull in some examples of how we've done it before with brands, and also some examples of brands that are doing it really well on their own and we think are absolutely smashing it and are great for inspiration. I'm not going to leave the screen up the whole time because I think that it's nice to see everybody's faces. So let's kick off on the insight section. And actually, Bean, I'd love to direct this first question in your direction, but insights is, I guess it's somewhat of a vague term. So, where do you know how to start when it comes with finding insights and doing research?
Yeah, if you pull up the next slide, just because that has some really helpful diagrams. This was with Back Market. So I thought I'd just talk about this because it's a great example of a client that came to us who really wanted to understand the market a bit better. And it took a lot of research and insights to do that. This was like an awareness campaign, so it wasn't TikTok growth, but the end goal was the same. They wanted to go viral. They wanted to connect with consumers. They wanted to build a customer base. So kind of the journey to these insights would have been the same, whether it was awareness or account growth. But these are some of the key insights I found when researching. It was all about figuring out where Back Market sits in current conversations. We wanted to make sure they seemed relevant and came across relevant in kind of their industry field, rather than just being another brand chasing trends, because it's really obvious when brands do that. So these are some key things that I do when I research and find insights, and things that I always do. Finding out what the brand's niche is and what it provides above similar brands in the industry. So Back Market is a sustainable tech company. Sustainability obviously came to mind. It's a huge point of conversation. The middle graph, so the top graph, shows over the last 3 months how much sustainability is trending. So it's kind of constantly going up and down, it's very consistent. And then the other, so there's 2 lines on there. The line before that is from 3 months before. So ultimately, for 6 months, sustainability is huge. It also has 1.8 billion views on TikTok. So I knew that young people cared about it. But when I looked at kind of relevant hashtags, which is the graph below all the blue boxes, the only kind of call to actions or stuff that young people think you should be doing to be more sustainable was fast fashion, recycling, and DIY. There was nothing on tech waste, even though it seems quite obvious because young people use tech all the time. We get a phone for a year, we chuck it away. You would think that we would be thinking about that, but they weren't. So we obviously knew there was a massive gap. And we also knew that it was within a topic, so sustainability, Back Market fit in that topic that young people already care about and are really talking about, but there was just a gap for tech waste. And so that was the opportunity. Back Market could become the OG information for tech waste. If this was about account growth, then their account would be focused on providing that information. So when like doing your research and finding your brand's niche, then you can figure out where you sit within kind of Gen Z conversations. And I think this is really key to account growth because ultimately young people don't really care about collection launches or your one-of-a-kind products. They want to go on TikTok and they want to be provided with some form of service, something that kind of adds to their day. And that can be education, which was Back Market, or it can be entertainment, or it can be comedy or fashion inspiration. And through your research and insights, you can then find where your brand sits and then make sure that you remain super authentic and in your own way unique on the platform.
And being for the brands here, where can you find these kind of insights?
Yeah, so all of these, well, the 2 graphs in the middle are from our social listening tool, Fanbytes, but all the hashtag numbers on the right are from TikTok. So use TikTok because there's so much on there. I constantly go onto the platform to see what's being spoken about, what's doing well, what's not. There's actually so many numbers, so much data on the platform. So it's very worth using that and knowing the platform inside out. I think it's really obvious when brands are trying to go big on TikTok without actually knowing what TikTok is and what does well on it, and kind of the native content to the platform. So I would do that. Also, speaking to young people, as soon as I get a brief through, I think about how this brand impacts my life, or what I care about it, why I would care about it, why my friends would care about it. And so speaking to young people, both your customers and not, both people on the platform are not, getting a really broad sense of what young people care about and why they're interacting with the platform. And obviously that's quite easy for me because I'm kind of within that sphere, but if you're not, just like ask people in that world because they will tell you. Also, another thing that we make a big part of our strategy plans is we'll do like check-ins. So if we say I do loads of research and I come up with creative ideas and I really believe something's going to work, but I don't know until it's out there, often part of the strategy will be in 2 months' time or a month's time, we will look at what influencers are doing well, what creatives are doing well, and then scrap what's not doing well and run with what is doing well. So even if you have all the information and research in the world, every platform is different, every account is different, every follower base is different. You won't actually know how the algorithm is working with you until you're trying it. And then finally, I'd probably say asking content creators. A lot of content creators are reliant on the platform for income and money, so they're going to be so switched on with what's doing well and what's not doing well. And so if you have any brand ambassadors you're working with, or influencers you use regularly, or just contacts that you have, ask them where the conversations are going, what their insights are telling them, and you can get a really good picture of what's doing really well.
Makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like actually really understanding the audience is a super important place to start. And I know we're talking about that in the office all the time. So the question for Sophie is actually, how would you go about, Sophie, when you're running a campaign, how do you go about making sure that you have a really great understanding of an audience?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think a lot of the time when brands come to us and they want to do specifically a TikTok campaign, the first thing that I always say is we really need to get an understanding of what the audience, who your audience is, what they want, what they're engaging with. And obviously a great place to start with this is, how are they interacting on other platforms? So Instagram. Obviously, whilst it's different, that getting an understanding of, what they're interacting with and what they're enjoying and what the feedback is on there allows you to kind of have at least a base foundation line for how we're then going to portray, keep the messaging consistent and give them what they want on TikTok, but in a way that is then native to TikTok. So, what products, what content are they really interacting with and engaging with the most? What are they asking for the most? Do you do polls? That's a really great thing to do. Do polls, ask your customer, ask them what they want to be seeing. And then it is a little bit of a testing approach. When you go onto TikTok, we'll always say, let's define how we're going to understand, how we're going to portray this personality, this TikTok persona, in a way that is native to the platform, but not necessarily doing so in a way that is saying, let's just do entertainment, or let's just do educating. Try a couple of things and then see which works the best, and then that takes, well, when we say best, it's about what are the objectives here. Some pieces of content will get you incredible engagement and amazing awareness, and then they might not get that many clicks through to the website, whereas other pieces of content might not get that much engagement, but they might be the one that are driving the most clicks and the most sales. So it's really important to understand what fits the best objective so that you know how to kind of move forward and what to do more of. But yeah, I think speaking and engaging with the audience, and it's so much easier to do it and interacting with them, so much easier to do it now that we have, platforms like TikTok. That is where you're going to really get to know what they want. Speaking to that person is the first thing that you need to be doing.
Okay, cool. So you've done your research, you've gathered some insights, you feel like you've got a good understanding of the audience and what you're looking to achieve. How do you then go about turning that into a content strategy, and what kind of content generally works well for brands?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, well, the first is, it's kind of a twofold approach. So you've got the insights. That's obviously the first point of call. And when I say insights, these have to be general insights of that relate to your brand and your company. So what's going on in the industry? What conversation points, as Bean's just been talking about, what are the hashtags that are doing really well? And then who are the best performers within those niches, within those communities? And that obviously helps to drive the strategy, because it feeds our creative of, okay, these are the points that we know are being talked about. These are the best performers within these areas. And then we've obviously got our brand message that we want to put across. You position yourself within those communities in the best way possible. So, for example, a sustainable fashion brand, the insights are going to be telling you, okay, these are the conversation points that are really popular at the moment, whether it be kill fast fashion, the hashtags that Bean just walked us through. And so make sure you're incorporating those, but do so in a way that is still relevant to your brand. It's not just going completely off on a whim and saying, okay, we know this is popular, so we want to talk about it. It's obviously got to be relevant as well. And then you can also look, like I said, towards who's the best performers within these communities. So you're really getting very granular with positioning yourself. So you're telling your message, but you're doing so within communities that are already interested in these topics. They're already interested in the conversations. They're engaging with other similar kind of hashtags. And you're also doing so with the best performers within those niches. So there you become a conversation leader. You become the person that is working with the best creator within the conversations that you want to be talking within, but yet still telling your brand message.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess a question for Sophie House then, if you're a brand, how can you actually start to make some of your own TikTok content?
Well, I think the most important thing, as Sophie and Bean have been saying, is to just make sure that what you're making is super native to TikTok and to the TikTok audience. So an example of a campaign that we worked on with Creamfields Festival, which is one of my like bigger accounts. They wanted to grow their TikTok account and they came to us. They had 7,000 followers and we grew them to 27,000 followers in a month. We did this through a combination of paid ads, content creation, using influencers, and one of the most successful ways was actually using B-roll footage from previous festivals, and we made memes out of them because we took a look at their TikTok page when they first came to us, and it was all sort of like very heavily produced, like content that isn't necessarily shot in this way that would be native to TikTok. So not shot on iPhone, not something that you would like, it looks out of place when you're scrolling through TikTok. So we thought, okay, this is probably why people aren't engaging with it. And I thought, well, the festival's not on at the moment, but how can we promote the festival whilst it's not on? And I thought the best way to do that would be to use B-roll content from people who've been to the festival in previous years. So we got them to, they have a huge platform on Instagram. So we got them to put a post on their story on Instagram and say, hey guys, send us your B-roll content or like any funny footage of you from Creamfields, and then follow us on TikTok and you might find your footage on there. And that actually generated quite a few people to jump over before we'd even started the campaign. And then what we did with the footage was just come up with meme ideas. Some of them were just relevant to the festival. Some of them were relevant to stuff that was already trending. And yeah, it just went really, really viral. Some of them, like that one, you can see the first one there, the silly video of the guy washing his hair with a water bottle. People like TikTok absolutely loved it. And I think it's just finding that balance of stuff that is going to be funny and engaging, and people on TikTok are going to look past it and it won't look out of place, but they'll still be like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And also stuff that definitely like sums up your brand and what you're trying to put across. So I think stuff like that was really great for us. And another way that we did it with Creamfields is actually using influencers to create content for the brand's page. So we worked with influencers who would be the kind of demographic that would be going to the festival, so it looked like natural on the festival's page, and we got them to create content around the festival. So like you can see here, we had some outfit ideas, and we had on the right here like a POV like festival story time thing. So, and another great thing, and touching on what Sophie said and Bean, is that we actually went out to the creators, because they all go to festivals, and we asked them like, what would you make, like what feels right to you to make for a brand like Creamfields? And a lot of them came up with the ideas themselves. So it was a really collaborative process, but it worked super well.
Love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And we've kind of nicely segued on into, we've spoken about the strategy, the content, onto discovery. And I can see we're getting a lot of questions about paid and the split between influencers as well. So I think we've touched on a few of the key different ways that you can start actually growing the account, driving people to it once you've got the good content there. I'd love if we could touch on first actually the paid media side of things. And Sophie, if you give us an overview of how we've done that before.
Yeah, of course. So for example, Penhaligon's is a really good one to think about. So Penhaligon's essentially came to us with just over 1,000 followers on TikTok, and they wanted to activate a campaign, have this organic awareness, but also to drive new followers to their account. So obviously, first point of call is, they've not got a presence on TikTok. The reality is they've only got just over 1,000 followers. And they really wanted to engage a community that were very much focused on the fragrance world and very much interested in that. So first point of call is us understanding, as we've just discussed, who the people, what are the conversations that are going on within the fragrance world on TikTok, identify the community that we want to be talking to, because if you want to go and get more followers on TikTok, that's great. And you can do so with paid media that can help to drive those followers. But you also need to think about who those followers are going to be, because you want followers that are not just followers that like your content, but they're actually interested in your product and they want to make purchases. If you're looking, let's be honest, every brand is at driving more conversions down the line. And so once we'd identified, these are the people we want to be talking to, these are the people we want to engage, then we came up with some really cool creative ideas. And we did, you have to have enough organic activity going live on the platform to then understand, okay, what is working the best for engagement, what's driving the most clicks. And then what we could do is take the best performing content. So the content that is driving the most clicks, it's driving the most people, it's getting that most engagement, it's getting people interested and it's getting people talking, and then repurpose that as paid media with the objective to drive new followers. And then what's going to happen is, the paid media will work in a way that it's going to be targeting an audience that are already interested in this kind of thing. So the people that you're going to be getting to your account are going to be people that are interested in buying your product. So, I mean, with Penhaligon's as an example, they had the objective to have an additional 12,000 followers, but with the strategy that we came up with, we managed to get over 17,500 followers for them. So great results. I saw a question pop up before, which was saying, what should the split between the organic and the paid media be? And I think it really obviously depends on budget, but you definitely want to, in order to be able to optimize in the best way possible and make sure that you are using the best performing content, you need to have enough organic activity so that you can learn from it. So you've got enough going live so you can say, okay, this specific piece of content we know is working really well for clicks. Like it's obvious, it's here, it's in the numbers, rather than kind of a bit of guesswork. Excuse me.
Makes a lot of sense. And so we've spoken about paid. What about when you're working with influencers and creators? Actually, how can you use influencers to drive more people to discover your account?
Yeah, so I think once, as Sophie said, like once you've sort of brought people to your page with paid and you've sort of like built a bit of a foundation, built a bit of buzz around your page, then it's a really good idea to start using influencers for content creation, not just for your page, but also for their own pages. So we did this with Creamfields and it worked really well. So alongside the sort of account growth and content creation activation for the Creamfields own account, we also worked with influencers who created content for their own page around Creamfields. And some of it we did, which worked super well, was sort of cliffhanger content strategy. So we would get, say, for example, a comedy influencer to do a festival story time, and he would like start a funny story about an experience he had at Creamfields on his page. And then he'd say, follow the Creamfields account for part 2, tag Creamfields. And then his followers would go over to the Creamfields page to watch the part 2, which was posted on there. And I think that was just a really cool way of doing it. And people seemed to engage really well with it. And we got some great results. And I think, yeah, using influencers can be a massive asset as long as you're making sure you choose influencers that align well with your brand and who are getting the engagement and stuff that it's going to take people over by like either tagging them in the caption or tagging them in the comments and pinning it and stuff.
I think that's such a smart strategy. I'm wondering if we should try it on this webinar. And actually, you could tell us a funny festival story, and right before you get to the end, you cut it off, and people have to join our next webinar to find out what happens. We'll give it a go. Start thinking about your festival story now, Sophie. A question from Amy on that is actually, how do you find creators?
Sorry, that question's for me. It sort of depends. We have a great network of creators that we work with all the time at Fanbytes, so it's a lot easier for us when we have the network already there. But in terms of a brand, like finding creators themselves, I would say looking on specific hashtags. So like if you look on hashtag festival, using Creamfields as an example, see which creators have created festival style content before, or like music creators or fashion creators, depending on your niche. I think I would say using hashtags to find content that's under there would be the best way. Yeah.
And Bean, you mentioned that when you're doing a lot of the research, you might speak with creators to try and get an understanding from their perspective of what they think could work. One question we've had is, do you find creators are happy to share advice without being paid for it?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I've never really gone to a creator. I mean, I feel like account managers maybe do that more because they're working alongside creators. I've never gone directly to a creator that I haven't used and asked them for advice. But I do think you can get a lot from their page. I feel like you can get a lot of like tips on what's working, what's not working, what their niche is, how they're interacting with. So say again, if it's fast fashion, how they're interacting with fast fashion. What are they bringing up? What topics are they not talking about anymore that seem to have died? What topics are they bringing up again? And you can find out a lot from lots of different research across lots of different influencers just by looking. You don't necessarily have to have like direct conversations with them. But I don't know in terms of, I don't know, Sophie, whether you know the answer to this or I don't know how they interact when you're asking influencers that you're not working with for tips.
I think it can be definitely hit and miss and depends on the creator. I tend to find that with, and I guess I've got a different perspective on this as well because I have a brand myself, but with the slightly smaller influencers, the slightly smaller creators, they tend to be much more forthcoming and willing to give you their inside information, tips, because the reality is they're probably thinking there's going to be something coming out of it for them in the end. But saying that, I have spoken with larger creators who are also equally like forthcoming with information. I really do think it depends on the person and framing it in a way that makes sense for why you want to know the information. I really think it depends.
And the one thing that we haven't touched on yet, but we see, I think everyone's used to seeing it all the time on Instagram, and we're starting to see it more and more on TikTok, is actually using competitions to grow your account. So can someone touch on that as a strategy?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So this is a really great way to grow your account, but you want it to be, you don't want it to be too detailed so that it puts people off. So recently we ran a competition for Joa. Joa are a beauty brand and they were launching in CVS in America. And what they wanted to do was drive in-store traffic to get people talking about CVS and actually going there and buying the Joa product. So what we did is we incorporated a competition where people had to go and the product wasn't being launched in all the CVSs. It was only in certain ones. So the competition was hero influencers, big macro influencers, getting their followers and, also getting micro influencers to go and find CVS stores that stored the product. Once they did that, they'd video themselves, like put a, video themselves on TikTok, showing that they found the product, talking about what their favorite product was. And the way that you can do this is, like Sophie touched on before, in a content series. So if you kind of stagger it out, and obviously the person that does the most, that finds that creates the most engaging video and gets a prize of, the prize has to be worth it. A box of all the products or a box of the latest collection, that sort of thing. And I think that just to point on that, the prize really does have to be worth it. Otherwise, people aren't going to be that interested to get involved. So whatever you can give away as the prize, like, make it good. And yeah, then getting people to post their own videos, and the best video is going to win that prize. That's a really great way because people want to stay engaged with the account. They want to keep up to date. Who's going to win? Have I won? And also the fact that part of the competition terms should be, tag your however many friends, leave a comment in order to, get a better chance of winning. So you're going to be, engaging more people and bringing new followers who are presumably also interested in your kind of product. So it can really boost the amount of people that are following you, even if initially they are just following you because they want to win this product, this prize. It means that you've then got that, you can very quickly grow your following. And then from there, it's about keeping them engaged. But competitions are definitely a great way to build that following, but in a really speedy way.
Cool. And let's talk about that a little bit. So you've grown your account. You've already got some great content on there. What else can you be doing to keep your audience engaged?
Is that to me?
To anyone. Go on, Sophie.
There's two Sophies on this call, Joe. It's very confusing. But yeah, I think interacting with them, it's not just about now putting out something that's going to be super interesting, and also knowing what style of content is best fitting which bill. So don't have, even if you want to be driving loads of conversions, don't have everything looking really salesy because it gets boring. People don't want to constantly be being sold to, even if they do want the product. It's annoying to watch. It just is. So have that content, but also have the content that is setting the scene. It's a bit more ethereal. It's a bit more, it's setting the kind of lifestyle essence of your brand without necessarily showing the product. And I'm speaking very much from a fashion and beauty point of view now, which I'm sure that Sophie would have a different point of view when it comes to music. But making sure that what you're putting out there is something that your audience is going to be, it's satisfying to watch. It's giving them a nice feeling. Again, this is all about curating your life. They're following you because they want to see a certain type of product, but also make sure that that message, brand messaging, is communicated through a much more natural style of content. And like I said, interacting with them, so encouraging that UGC, getting them involved, making them feel that they're part of a plan, a part of like a club, is a definite way to keep them engaged.
Definitely. And I actually also really like it. This isn't even music related, just something I've seen like on my For You page. I've noticed a lot of brands recently like actually getting their social media teams who are making the content, like having FaceTime in the content itself. So like showing them in the office, like day in the life, like this is the day in life working at ASOS, this is the day in life working at Skinny Dip. And I think like that kind of stuff just really helps tell the story of your brand and make it a lot more personal, and like feel like you can relate to not only the brand itself, but like the team behind the brand. Because like at the end of the day, like your team is what drives your brand and your whole story, isn't it? So I think like if you can, like having FaceTime of your actual team and showing some behind the scenes stuff works super well in terms of engagement and keeping people like really falling in love with your whole brand, not just the product. Does that make sense?
And let's talk about the reporting side of it. I guess we've already had a question around, actually, is number of followers just a vanity metric? So I'd love if we could dig into a little bit about what else can you be tracking when you're growing a TikTok account.
I was just thinking about, when I saw that question, I was just thinking about this as well. I think it really it depends on what you want out of your account. And I think you have to decide what kind of your objectives are. So if you want to have loads and loads of followers, then that's great. That can be your metric for growth. If you want to build a really close community of people commenting and talking to each other and connecting with your brand and connecting with other people that follow your brand, then I think that's another great way to measure growth. Or if you just want to make people laugh and entertain people and get likes and shares, then that's another great way. I mean, Ryanair is one really interesting example, because what they have a lot of followers and they're very loved, and you could say that they're like really at the like top tier of growth in terms of TikTok accounts. How many people actually get driven to their website from their TikTok? I don't know. Do people just go to their account for like comedy and entertainment, but not really care about their products, and they never actually push their products? So yeah, I think you can actually do so much with TikTok, and I think you have to decide what your measurement for growth actually is. It's not just about followers. Followers is a number that you can very easily visualize, and you can compare yourself to other brands easily. But there's so much more that you can get out of TikTok. And your followers, you may have loads of followers, but your followers don't really care about you, or you may have hardly any, but they really care about you. They engage in your competitions and they go on your website and buy your brand. So I feel like that your kind of metric for growth can be defined by you and your brand. And then you can go by that, really.
And I think one of the really cool things that we've seen on TikTok, to touch on that more, is actually when you're looking at trying to uncover audience insight from what's happening on your TikTok account. Yes, it's easy to look at like which style of content is engaging more and what people are liking. But I think one thing that I've seen that's really cool is actually community managers on behalf of brands can actually start DMing people that are highly engaged and actually just asking their followers and their fans, like, I saw you commented this on a particular post. Actually, can we dig a little bit deeper in that and turn TikTok into a research tool, which I think is super interesting. On that note of, I guess, looking at reporting, metrics and engagement, a question for Sophie House, I think you kind of touched on this earlier, is once you've started putting content out, how can you judge the performance of that content and use it to optimize future content?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with Creamfields, we really took a lot of learnings from this, because it was quite a campaign that went over the space of a month. So we got an opportunity to see like what content was working well and what wasn't. And I think if you just like can, especially if we're using influencers, you can see how the content performs compared to their usual content on their pages, and then see like what the comments are like and stuff like that. And so I think just like keeping tabs on what their audience thinks that way is really useful. And something that we found was that if you keep like branding and stuff like that to a very minimum, that's the best way, because it just makes the content look as organic as possible on the influencer's page. Because like people don't want to know they're viewing an ad when they're viewing an ad, right? That's like the guerrilla stealth TikTok marketing 101. Like you want to try and advertise to people without them realizing that you're advertising to them. So I think in that way, like I said before, like liaising with the creators, making sure you're really collaborating with them, because they've grown their TikTok account to 2 million followers, whatever, like they know what works for their page. So if you're going to work with them, I think making sure you work with them super closely and figure out what's going to work for their page as well as work for your brand, and then make sure that it looks as organic as possible. And I think keeping branding and logos and stuff like that to an absolute minimum. If not, I would suggest not using them at all if you're going to like use an influencer, so that it just doesn't look out of place on their page and it looks like the influencer really cares about your brand and isn't being paid to care about it, if that makes sense.
I think that's such an interesting point, and I think there's always an exception that kind of proves the rule. But I think the point is that actually social users, whether they're Gen Z or older, are smart, and they generally can tell when they're being advertised to. And to me, it seems almost like, yes, we're going to show you an ad, but we're going to make sure that you get value from this ad and you enjoy it. And like Bean was saying, you get something out of it, regardless of the fact that you know it's being served to you by an algorithm. Which I think brings us nicely full circle from insights through content all the way around to reporting, and then turning that into new content. I know we've had a fair few questions from our lovely audience, so I want to start off by asking a question for anyone. Does using a business account instead of a personal account hurt your chances?
No, I think that people tend to engage more with personal accounts, but it shouldn't. It depends on the kind of content. This is TikTok, not Instagram. So it really depends on the kind of content you're putting out there. If you're putting it out there, really branded, as Sophie just said, really heavily branded content, yeah, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you because people don't want to see that. It's annoying to watch. But if you're speaking to your brand in a way and you're doing these day in the life, behind the scenes, this kind of content and content that is engaging, then no, it won't hurt you using a business account just for the sake of it being a business account.
So it's more about the content.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to add that I think it's also, once you have like your brand name as the name of the account, and you might have like a verified tick or just a name, like everyone knows that you're a business. So like ultimately, in terms of what people are seeing, they already know that you are a business and you're probably making money or trying to make money from this. So in that case, it doesn't really make a difference because it's already up, like everyone already knows. So it's more about the content you're producing. And as we've said throughout, just remaining authentic and different. Yeah.
And how often should a brand post to TikTok to see results?
I would say like as often as you can without it compromising the quality of your content. So I think what we've found, it's better to do 3 posts a week that are really good posts and like well thought out and well put together, rather than like posting every day but the content's not that good, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys have a different opinion on this, because I know like working with different brands and different like styles of content has different results and like different sort of like measures and stuff like that. But I think if post as often as you can, as long as the quality of the post isn't compromised.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Great. And another question is, when it comes to growing on TikTok, should brands focus on the macro celebrity status influencers or more micro influencers?
So that's a really interesting question, because I would have always said that you are better steering clear of those macro celebrity influencers if you want a really great engagement, because people tend to engage more with people they can relate to. However, I don't think that's necessarily so much the case. Look, the big macro people are going to get you the reach, and your engagement, you will get a better engagement with the micro people. That just tends to be how it is. But it can work. It depends what you want. So, for example, recently we did a campaign with a brand, beauty brand, and what they do is kind of like freezing fat therapy. So you lose a load of weight and then you want to tone it up. And they didn't have a huge budget. So one of our brilliant campaign managers realize, you know, Arj from The Only Way Is Essex, obviously he's not even really an influencer, but he's a celebrity. And he would be a great person because he's recently lost about 500 stone. And so we basically blew all the budget on him, and it could have gone one of two ways, and it worked amazingly. And I think when it really depends what you're putting out there, that is a thing, an example where there's a product, he is clearly a great candidate for it because he has recently lost loads of weight and he is proving that this product works. So in terms of growing their community and driving more people and getting them more customers, it worked amazingly. I think ordinarily, though, if you're just kind of trying to push your brand out there and get people to engage with the brand, I would say it's much more engaging and it's much more authentic and credible if you're using more slightly smaller influencers.
I would also add that I think that it kind of depends on the mentality of the followers. So I think macro influencers, their followers will do what they suggest because they love them and they'll follow them, but it costs a lot of money. For the same money, you could get a load of micro and kind of make a suggestion of lots of social proof and like a wave of like trend. So both can work really well depending on the outcome. Both can maybe have the same effect, but one is because they love the person, they'll basically do whatever they say, and the other one is all these people are talking about this must be good, I have to try it. So it can kind of create a different like headspace for the people you reach.
Totally. And I think also, and like, what do you want here? Do you want the reach, or do you want a load of content? Because micro influencers are incredible at creating content that's of just as high quality a lot of the time as macro. You know, they're on the rise, they're up and coming. And so if what you want is a load of amazing content and also some reach, then obviously working with micro is better because your money's going to go further. So it's really about identifying, you know, what you want to get from this.
We have a few minutes left, and I'd love to ask one last question to each of you, which is actually, you know, who is one of your favorite brands on TikTok that you think is doing really well? Where do you go for inspiration?
I'll go first. So I've already mentioned Ryanair, and I don't like to mention them too much because everyone talks about them, and I don't necessarily think they're like the best in the business. One thing I would say is I think they're doing something that is actually really hard to do. They are really connecting with young people, they're being funny, and they're doing it well. And as I said, I don't know what their KPIs are, but I don't know how much their TikTok account really drives sales. They don't seem to have much of an interest in promoting products or like proving discounts or the fact that they're better than EasyJet or whatever. But they're really good at creating a community on TikTok, and they were one of the first people to do it. And I think that's really hard. Like, I actually think that's one of the hardest things a brand can do, is like genuinely come across as authentic, as if Ryanair is one thing, but the person behind Ryanair's TikTok is just one of us and we love them. And I think that's really impressive. So yeah, I often go to them for that kind of inspiration, just a different side of the world of TikTok.
I think just touching on when you say you don't know what their KPIs are, I think what they've done is said, how do we get in front of our audience's eyes? The people that are going to be buying from Ryanair are the slightly younger people that will need cheap flights to wherever they're going to a festival to, you know, generalizing, but and so what they've done is an amazing job of getting in front of those eyes. So they're front of mind. They're, you know, their audience is on TikTok. Their audience is thinking about going this place, that place. They've got their audience, you know, just being that front of mind as opposed to, say, EasyJet. But yeah, I think for me, my answer is always the same to this, which is Gucci. And I think what I love with what they do is they have a really amazing they're a luxury brand and they've been around for God knows how long. But what they've done is managed to understand that they need to be talking to this younger audience and doing so in a way that is keeping that heritage of the brand, but also putting like these incredibly crazy, weird, wacky and wonderful ideas out there. And, you know, having collaborations that you would never even think before, never even think that Gucci would ever do, such as with the Francis Bourgeois and the North Face collab. And this is the kind of stuff that gets people going, what on earth? You know, they've said, okay, this is someone that everyone is obsessed with on TikTok. Let's get involved with him. And let's not just kind of do something similar, but let's actually work with this person. you know, this person is not wearing Gucci every day. They're not the typical Gucci ambassador, but it's someone that the audience that they want to engage with already loves. So they have said, you know, we're going to work with this person. And I think just having that kind of foresight and like being one step ahead in terms of knowing that you need to be doing that to get to that audience, is they've done it very well.
Sophie?
Yeah, I actually just noticed that someone already said it in the chat, but mine is Duolingo as well as yours, Amra, in the chat. I think it's so funny, like, and I think really important the way that what we were all saying before, that they stay true to their content style, and it's really recognizable because they have obviously like the green bird, and if you scroll through their page, all the content is different and fun and engaging, but it all also looks super uniform, and it's got such a strong brand identity. I think, yeah, they smashed it.
Love that. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing some knowledge, answering those questions, and thank you very much to our audience for joining. I hope you found that useful. We're always doing loads of different things. We do webinars, we put out a lot of reports. I've thrown a QR code up on screen if you want to read any of them. They're all free and they're there. If you have any specific questions about what your brand can do on TikTok, then do please feel free to reach out to us, and we are always happy to chat and happy to help. I hope everyone has a great day, and hopefully see you on TikTok sometime soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.